Looking at the Republican Party, it looks more and more likely by the day that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee. What about Nikki Haley? How much longer can she stay in the race for? She lost the primaries in South Carolina, in Michigan. What's your take or your prediction, I guess, with Nikki Haley?
It's interesting because until actually she just lost in South Carolina, she was getting a lot of money. I mean, she was outspending Trump. She even outspent Ron DeSantis in Iowa, but she outspent Trump and Ron DeSantis in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then massively outspent Trump in South Carolina, especially in the last month. They blew him out of the water because some Democrats and wealthy people that are sort of on both sides of the aisle, give to people on both sides of the aisle, were bankrolling her campaign. They see it as sort of a protest campaign against Donald Trump and not necessarily a viable campaign to actually beat Donald Trump. So the question is whether those donors are willing to keep putting money into Nikki Haley's race to help her kind of limp along. She says she's going to be in this past Super Tuesday. She already bought a 7-figure ad buy ahead of Super Tuesday. She is putting more money into this race, and she does still have some money to put into this race until Super Tuesday. But if she wants to really stick it out, she can. It just depends on whether she's able to fund that money. And personally, it looks like she does have the will to do that. I don't know if she ultimately will, but she has talked about how getting 40% of the vote or getting 30% of the vote, like she did in Michigan last night. She got about 40% in South Carolina, about 40% in New Hampshire. She says that's not a small group of the Republican Party. And so for her to kind of continue making this stand on what she says is a very principled stand, the media really loves it. There could be a lot in it for her down the road if she's able to sort of become the high-profile foil to Donald Trump, almost the heir apparent after Donald Trump, to that sort of donor class. So it just depends on if people are willing to fund this sort of public relations campaign against Donald Trump. It's more PR campaign than it is political campaign.
Okay, finally, Emily, an Italian television show has recently mocked Joe Biden in a Saturday Night Live style skit by poking fun at the president's mental fitness. The skit portrayed an actor mimicking Joe Biden, mumbling through a speech, wandering aimlessly, and confusing world leaders' names. Let's take a look.
Buonasera, Presidente Biden. Oh, Presidente Biden. President, Mr. President. It's okay?
Are you okay, President?
Ok, tutto a posto. Welcome, benvenuto. No, di nuovo, mamma mia. President, Mr. President, ecco.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Ok, it's okay.
Yeah, very good. What's your name?
Con chi parla? Mr. President.
My name is Joe Kennedy.
No, Biden, lei è Biden. È Biden.
Oh, no. Emily, did they get it right? Is it a little bit too close to home?
You know, again, yeah, I think it resonates with a lot of voters because it keeps showing up in the polls that people think, and it happens to Trump too. I mean, there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and Nikki Haley has talked about this on the campaign trail. There's widespread dissatisfaction with the same candidates as 2020 being what's on the ballot in 2024. There's a lot of polling that suggests people think Joe Biden is too old to be president. There's even polling of Democrats that suggests they wish they had another option. And so much of it, because he's passed a lot of legislation. He has put a lot of executive actions into order, but a lot of it just comes down to his inability to get through some sentences often when he's speaking publicly. He does fall and stumble a lot. And it just reminds me of the George W. Bush era. It reminds me of the Trump era when constantly Americans felt like they were being embarrassed on the world stage by their president. And a lot of the people that were upset about George W. Bush doing that and really liked Obama for being sort of refreshing and the anti-George W. Bush, someone Americans could feel proud of when he was, at the G20 summit. A lot of them are defending Joe Biden now. And I don't think that's really working for voters because for voters, when you're not that partisan, you just see a man who's really, really struggling, not unlike Mitch McConnell has really struggled with his health. It's very visible and it's almost uncomfortable to watch. And I think the Italian sketch actually really nailed that dynamic.
Oh, I think they did too. It is uncomfortable to watch. We keep watching it though. Emily Jashinsky, culture editor at The Federalist. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.